Welcome to the Explainer. High up in the Himalayas, something strange is happening. Entire villages, they're just empty. Today, we're going to piece together the story behind why this is happening and what these so-called ghost villages might signal for a billion people's water supply. Okay, let's just dive right in with a number that's, well, it's pretty shocking. Our sources point to the Indian state of Uttarakhand, where, get this, over 1,700 villages are now completely abandoned. We're talking empty homes, overgrown farms, even silent temples. The locals have a name for them, Bhutia Gan, ghost villages. So you gotta ask, right? Why? Why would whole communities just up and leave? Now, the easy answer would be jobs, people moving to the city for work. But the sources we looked at say that's not the whole story. Not even close. The real reason for this mass departure? Well, it's hidden deep underground. All right, so to really get what's going on, we need to talk about something you can't even see. It's India's most vital resource, but it's totally invisible. We're talking about groundwater. Think of it as a massive underground savings account of water, a lifeline for, literally, hundreds of millions of people. Yeah, there's a technical term for this problem, water stress. It basically means you're starting to run low. The official line is when the water available per person drops below 1,700 cubic meters a year. Well, India crossed that line a while back. And today, get this, nearly 600 million people, that's almost twice the population of the United States, are facing high to extreme water stress. It's a huge, huge number. So where is all this water actually going? I mean, that's the big question. And this chart, wow, it tells a really clear story. It's not going to big cities or factories, not mainly. Look at that. A whopping 87% is being pumped out of the ground for one thing, irrigation, for growing food. That means India's entire food security is basically built on top of this invisible and shrinking water supply. And this right here is what happens when you take out way more than you put in. Let's look at Punjab, a state that's basically one of India's biggest food producers. The first bar, that's what nature puts back into the ground each year, the recharge. The second, taller bar, that's what's being pumped out. They're pulling out more than 1.5 times what's going back in. That's not just unsustainable, it's like a ticking clock. Okay, so this really gets us to the heart of the issue, doesn't it? This groundwater doesn't just magically appear. It has to be replenished. And in India, that refill comes from 2 giant natural events every year. So the critical question becomes, what happens if those 2 events, those 2 massive fountains, start to dry up? Right. So basically, India's whole water system is balanced on 2 giant pillars. You've got the summer monsoon, which drenches the vast farmlands, and then you've got the winter snow in the Himalayas, which acts like a frozen reservoir. But here's the kicker. The sources we've looked at show that both of these pillars are starting to crumble. First up, let's talk about fountain number 1, the Southwest Monsoon. For literally centuries, this has been the engine of Indian farming. It brings the rain for the big summer crop, what's known as the Kharif season. But check out this number. In just one recent season, a district in Uttar Pradesh got 87% less rain than normal. That's basically no rain at all. And it's not a one-off. Farmers in the area are saying it feels like the monsoon is literally just skipping over them now. Okay, so that's the rain. Now let's look at fountain number 2, which is every bit as important, the Himalayas. People call them Asia's water tower, and for good reason. All that snow that falls in the winter, it's like a giant natural freezer. It melts slowly over the warmer months, feeding huge rivers like the Ganga and the Indus. And you guessed it, the numbers here are just as worrying. We're seeing a record low for what's called snow persistence. That's just a fancy way of saying how long the snow actually sticks around before melting. It's the lowest it's been in 23 years. For the Ganga River Basin specifically, it's the least snow they've seen in more than 2 decades. So that giant frozen reservoir, yeah, it's getting smaller. So let's connect the dots. A weak monsoon, less snow in the mountains. These aren't just abstract data points, right? They have real human consequences. And this is where the story comes full circle, bringing us right back to where we started, those ghost villages. Okay, look at this number. This isn't an estimate. It comes from official government data. In the last 10 years alone, more than 500,000 people have left the state of Uttarakhand. This isn't just a few families moving away. It's a full-blown exodus. They even have a local word for it, Palayan. It means mass migration. And this table breaks it down, showing us the hotspots. You can see districts like Tivray and Pare are being hit the hardest. We're talking about entire regions being hollowed out, losing their populations. And why? Because the one thing you absolutely cannot live without, water, is becoming harder and harder to find. And this quote from one of the sources it hits the nail on the head. For generations, people might have left these mountain villages to find a better job in the city. That was the story. But that story has changed. Now, as the sources point out, they're migrating for something much more fundamental. They're migrating for water. So you put all this evidence together, the failing rains, the melting snow, the emptying villages. Where does it all lead? What happens if these trends just keep going? Well, the sources lay out a pretty stark potential future, a kind of domino effect, a cascade of crises they've dubbed the Great Dry. And this is how that chain reaction could play out. It's like a series of dominoes. First, the two big water sources fail, the monsoons and the snow. That immediately leads to crop failures, not just one, but both the summer and winter harvests. Then the rivers themselves start to shrink. That's when the crisis hits the cities. Water taps running dry, power grids failing, and the final, biggest domino? Mass migration, but on a scale that would be completely unprecedented. And this is probably the most sobering takeaway from all the sources. This isn't some far-off, what-if scenario. They're saying the Palayan, that great migration, it's already happening. Those 1,700 ghost villages we talked about at the beginning, they're not a model of what could happen. They're the early warning sirens of what's happening right now. So that's where the evidence leaves us. The data is clear. The two great fountains that supply India with water are under serious stress. We can already see the human cost in those quiet, empty villages. The sources show the migration has already begun. So the question really isn't if this is a crisis anymore. The only question is, what happens next?